Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about something that is very important that pertains to research. The topic I will be discussing today is that of experiments. Now let's start off with what exactly an experiment is. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, an experiment is an operation or procedure carried out under controlled conditions in order to discover an unknown effect or law, to test or establish a hypothesis, or to illustrate a known law. In other words, an experiment is a procedure used to either prove, disprove, or create a hypothesis. There are many common features to an experiment. Good experiments are repeatable, they're easy to control the independent variable, and they have a small number of variables. The better experiments usually have a lower number of variables because the more variables there are, the harder it is. Now, before you learn the different types of experiments, you must first learn certain vocabulary words in order to better understand them. The experimental group, the group in your experiment that receives the stimuli you modified. Let's take an example. Let's say you were trying to test a new heart medication to see if it could actually lower blood pressure. The group that received this heart medication would be considered the experimental group. The treatment. This is the stimulant. It is also your independent variable. Basically, in the example stated before, the treatment would be considered the new heart medication you were testing. The control group. This group does not receive the treatment and is compared to the experimental group. They often do not know that they are part of the treatment. The Hawthorne effect. People react differently when being watched. Someone knowing that they are being watched in an experiment could actually alter the results. Pretest. The measurement of the dependent variable of an experiment before receiving the treatment. Post-test. The measurement of a dependent variable of an experiment after receiving the treatment. Subjects, the people or cases used in research projects. Now that we know what exactly experiments are, why we do them, some common features, and the important vocabulary words, let's take a look at the different types of experiments. There are three types of experimental design. Some common characteristics of the first design, which is true experimental design, is random assignment, a control group, an experimental group, pre-tests for each group, and post-tests for each group. The second type of design is pre-experimental design. This type of design is not usually used and is usually avoided. It is not random, and it is only usually used for exploratory research. The third type of design is quasi-experimental and special design. Stronger than pre-experimental designs, this design is just a variation of the classical design. Special situations, or when control over the independent variable is limited, is usually when this design is used. Now, let's look at some notation to further understand this. There's very useful notation that is used to actually help you understand this better. E, which stands for equivalence, means each group is random. O1 stands for observation 1 or the pretest. X stands for the treatment administered, and O2 stands for the observation 2 or the post-test. Here's an example of a classical experiment, which is an experimental design that has random assignment, a control group, an experimental group, pretest, and post-test. Okay, so the first group is randomly selected. It is observed, which is O1 or the pretest. Then it's administered a treatment, and it's observed again. So EO1, XO2. Then we have another group, which is randomly selected. So observed is not given the treatment because this is the control group, and it's observed again. This is O2. The other two examples here are post-test, which is noted here, and Solomon 4-group design, which is noted here. A post-test is usually only used when the researcher thinks that the pretest would skew the results, and the Solomon 4-group design basically combines these two, so it addresses both the weaknesses of each. Let's end off with a real-world example. Let's say I wanted to try a pill called Alpha Brain, a supposed cognitive enhancement supplement. What would I have to do to find out if this pill actually worked or if it was a scam? I would have to design a double-blind experiment in which neither the subjects nor the experimenter know the details of the pill. I would also administer a placebo to one of the groups and compare the results. This is just one real-world example of why experiments are very important. And this concludes our presentation on experiments.